Okay, welcome to the iPad podcast, and today is July 17, 2011. This is Lex at maxfuture.com, and we're here to discuss a lot of iPad-related news and iPad apps. So let's get to it, and remember, this is a chit-chat-free, commercial-free podcast that's just done for the love of the iPad and Apple-related stuff. So thanks for listening. Okay, so if you are into the iPad 2 and want another iPad 2, or know someone who wants an iPad 2 and doesn't like waiting around, well, good news, because the shipping time for the iPad 2s on Apple's website again fell, and it's only now 1 to 3 days. So you no longer have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks, and this means that Apple's production of the iPad 2 has caught up with demand, or demand has fallen to catch up with the production. My guess is that Apple has ramped up production of the iPad 2. So here we go. Okay, so if you jailbroke your iPad 2 last week with the website jailbreakme.com, you may want to hold off in updating the iOS from 4.3.3 to 4.3.4. Apple just released on Friday, July 15th, 2011, an update to the iOS 4.3. Now it's 4.3.4, and the main thing it does is it patches a vulnerability that was used by jailbreakme.com to jailbreak your iPad 2 with an untethered way. So I jailbroke my iPad 2 after downgrading from the iOS 5 beta, and I am not going to upgrade to iOS 4.3.4 because I want to keep my iPad jailbroken. I like it jailbroken so I can run display recorder software by Ryan Petrick, which allows me to do screen recording, plus some other tweaks that are kind of cool. So anyways, you should be aware if you jailbroke your iPad, do not upgrade. There currently is not another untethered jailbreak, although word comes from, I guess, one of the jailbreak communities that a tethered jailbreak is available. Now, a tethered jailbreak means if you shut down your iPad and it's jailbroken, you have to restart it by connecting it to the computer. You don't want to do that. So only really hardcore jailbreakers should do that. Again, I'm not advocating jailbreaking. You do it at your own risk, but there are some pluses to it. So be careful if you want to keep your jailbreak. So it looks like there may be another iPad competitor in the market soon, one that I've never heard of. This one by Toshiba called the Thrive, and a website called ocregister.com has a story on it on July 15th, 2011 by Ian Hamilton, and he says, quote, "We've got our hands on Toshiba's first tablet, the Thrive, that's spelled Thrive. So what is the Thrive going to have? It's going to have an SD card slot. It's going to have a USB port, an HDMI port, and a removable battery. And it's going to run Android 3.1, and it's going to cost only $480 for a 16-gigabyte one with storage, which is $20 cheaper than Apple's $500 entry price for an iPad 2. There's also apparently a cheaper version of the Thrive that offers 8 gigabytes of storage for $430. So we'll have to see. The problem with the Thrive is that it runs Android, and there's just not a lot of great apps and not really commercial market for apps in the Android world. So, interesting to see if Toshiba can enter this sort of crowded field of Android tablet devices that are competitors of iPad 2. Somehow I doubt it. Well, the next story is somewhat amusing, if not crazy, but I guess it makes sense. From a website called digitallife.today.com, there's a story that shoppers are fuming over Sears' $69 iPad ad mistake. And apparently Sears, the big, retail store, had an online ad recently that mistakenly advertised the 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi only iPad 2 for a mere $69. And that got shoppers' hopes up, according to the article, and was retracted by Sears, which claimed a third-party seller of Apple's iPad was responsible for the typo in the advertising. And what's interesting is, this is crazy. It says that model iPod 2 is normally sold for $744.99 by the third-party seller GSM on sale. Well, that's crazy. The Wi-Fi only iPad 2 is 16 gigabytes, is only $500. There's no way Apple would allow a third-party reseller to sell it for somewhat that much. So I don't know. I think this is kind of a bogus article because it doesn't make any sense. The iPad 2 entry price at 16 gigabytes is $500. So anyway, people should realize they're not going to get an iPad 2 for $69. But I can see how they'd be annoyed that there was this advertisement. Frankly, Sears should just give them the iPad 2 for $69 and suffer the losses, because that would be good, good for goodwill with the customers. Okay, so one app I want to talk about is a $1.99 game app called Onslaught, and it's from a company called Lost Decade Games LLC. And what Onslaught is, it's an arcade style, according to them, medieval fantasy shoot-up game where fans have, of retro classics like Archon, Gauntlet, and Smash TV may enjoy its intense gameplay. And basically there is 50 waves of medieval monsters, 5 unique boss battles and environments, deadly medieval fantasy weapons, in-game shop, and it's a $1.99. It's 14.9 megabytes, and it's generally getting good ratings in the store. But here's the thing. Why am I interested in this game? Well, I'm interested in this game because apparently it was produced in pure HTML5. So it's a native app. In other words, it's submitted through the App Store, so it goes through Apple's development program, Xcode. But more and more, there's ways to create apps using web code. And if you're not familiar with this, web code is what makes web browsers. So there's something called HTML. I might be sounding kind of basics for people who are really into technology. And the current version of HTML is called HTML5. And Apple's been, pushing HTML5 because it's great for video playing on a website. And so more and more, I think some developers are going to try to create apps using HTML5 because it's something a lot of people know how to, write in. So, but the question is, can anybody really create a good app using HTML5? So HTML5 is the language to create websites. And Apple likes HTML5 because, you don't have to use Adobe's Flash if you want to create animation on a website. And the ability to create animation on a website means you might also be able to create a game or something on a website. And then there's a real push by some people to develop HTML5 apps that could then play on iPhones, iPads, as well as Android devices. And there are movements on the internet. There's actually a free, I guess, resource called PhoneGap that you can download and plug into the Apple's Xcode, which is the program to develop apps for the iPad and the iPhone. Now, the normal way to develop apps for the iPhone and the iPad is to use a language called Objective-C. And Objective-C, if you don't have like a whole, computer science degree, is kind of hard to understand. And there are ways to sort of create an app for the iPad or iPhone without knowing Objective-C. Now, the reason is because Apple includes in its kit for developers to create an app through Xcode is the ability for the app to view a website or a web page within the app. And what people have been able to do is find a way to use that code, that API in the SDK, and instead insert a web app that was created for the internet that could be played as a native app. The bottom line is there's a way to sort of get the HTML code into Xcode and use that to create an app. And the reason I'm interested in Onslaught is because Onslaught is a game that was created by the developers as an HTML5 game, and they ported it into Xcode and have it running as supposedly a native app. So the real reason I'm looking at it is to see not only is it a good game, but is it something that works well, just like an app that was purely developed in Objective-C. So this was developed in HTML5 Onslaught and put it into Xcode and then created an app with it. So let's take a look at it. I've downloaded it and I put it on my iPad. Let's just take a first look at it. Okay, so if you're taking a look at the video, I'm launching the this game by Lost Decades game, and so let's. This is called Onslaught, and initially the graphics don't look so great. They look a little fuzzy. They don't have the sort of sharpness that you see. So it's a different level game. So let's go to. So it gives you two modes: use one finger, auto fire, or use two thumbs. So let's just try beginners. Use one finger, and I played around a little of it, and I gotta tell you, I'm a little disappointed, and I don't think HTML5 is really up to snuff with pure Objective-C native apps. For one, they made a big deal that this is such a great game and looks just like a native app, but the graphics are a little fuzzy, and the response of moving around the thing that you're supposed to shoot is kind of slow and not that quick reaction. So if this is supposed to impress me as to be similar to a purely Objective-C native apps game, it's not there. It's not anywhere as responsive, and it doesn't look as good. It does have the sort of jittery feel of a web app. So I can't recommend this. This is $2, and it's called Onslaught. It's like an arcade game. It's kind of silly. And the only reason I bought it again was because it was written in pure HTML5 code. So it's kind of a disappointment. So I would pass. I would stay away from anything that's a pure HTML5 game. Maybe Apple should disclose in the store, games that are not written in Objective-C and games that are ported over from some other code or platform. Okay, so if you like really beautiful magazines, there's a famous magazine, at least it was famous for me because I used to go to these magazine stores, these little nook magazine stores in New York City, and look at very expensive artsy magazines, and there was one that I used to buy occasionally called Wallpaper with an asterisk on it, Wallpaper Magazine, and now there's a Wallpaper Magazine app. And it's free to download. It's by IPC Media Limited. It's free to download, and then each issue, though, in-app purchase is $9.99. Now, you may say, well, that's really expensive, but you have to understand the paper version of that magazine is really expensive. I mean, I remember paying, on the stand over $10 an episode for Wallpaper. So, if you're a connoisseur of style, then you might want to get this. Now, what is Wallpaper, the magazine? Basically, it identifies stylish trends, architecture, art, design, entertainment, fashion, jewelry. So it's sort of like a high-end magazine for style, anything that's in design. And, if you're into that sort of thing, and if you're a fan, you should maybe consider getting it. Now it says, if you're an existing Wallpaper subscriber, you can access the iPad edition for free. So it probably makes sense to get a paper version and then get the digital version, because usually you can get the paper version of a subscription at a discount. So, if you're into nice magazines, you might want to try Wallpaper. At least download the free version, just to see what content there is for free, and then decide if you want to pay $10 to subscribe or get a in-app purchase. Now, there's a new utility, a PDF utility app available for $6.99 for the iPad called PDF Converter, and it's a little pricey, but if you really rely on saving content in PDF form, you might want to get this, because apparently what it can do is it can, right in the iPad, convert all sorts of media into PDFs. And PDFs, which is Adobe Acrobat's ubiquitous file format, are very useful in business. And it's also a secure way, to save stuff. So you can convert iWork and MS Office documents to PDF using this app. You can convert web pages. You can convert files from other applications. You can convert clipboard content to a PDF, photos to a PDF, and documents on Dropbox and MobileMe. So, it's a very useful utility. The overall ratings are 4.5 out of 38 ratings, so they're pretty high. Here's a typical rating by someone: I've waited a long time for this app, and it's amazing. I can save as PDF even Wikipedia articles, and after that send them by mail. So, if you think about it, I'm not so sure why they're so thrilled about saving Wikipedia articles, because you could email the link to someone of your Wikipedia page or a browser page. But I have to think that there's got to be people, for business reasons, would want this utility to be able to save anything as a PDF. So it's called PDF Converter, and the seller is Readdle, READDLE Inc., and it's $6.99. So it's a little pricey, but if you need something like this, I get it. Okay, so one app that I've been playing around with this week on my iPad costs 99 cents, and it's Battleship. It's the classic Battleship game from Electronic Arts. Now, there are other Battleship games. I haven't tried them, but this is by Electronic Arts, which is a major game maker for electronic games. And it's only 99 cents, and I guess it came out on June 23rd, but it was recently updated. And I bought it. It's only 99 cents, and it's very cool. One thing that's really cool is that if you have two iPads, you can play, with two iPads head-to-head, which is sort of like the classic iPad game. So anyway, let me give you a little sort of look-see at what it looks like. It's very cool. It's got good sound. And again, it's only 99 cents. And I guess it also plays on the iPhone. But it also plays on the iPad. It's geared for the iPad. It's a universal app. Okay, so this is what the Battleship game looks like. When you open it, you get this menu. You've got actually 4 different modes. One mode is classic, where you just basically have a simple gun and you take one shot at a time. Another mode is salvo, right here, and in salvo mode, you can shoot many shots at the same time. And in super weapon mode, you get all sorts of crazy super weapons that you can use. So it's kind of cool. The visuals are pretty good. It's like the old game Battleship. But one killer feature is you've got multiplayer role. And in multiplayer role, you can play on another iOS device. So you can play iPad to iPad, or you could play iPad to iPhone or iPhone to iPhone. And I tested it out, and it works with the iPhone. Now, you can play on a Wi-Fi network. That's probably the best way. You can play side by side. I'm not sure what that method is. And you can play Bluetooth. In other words, that they're connected. Now, what does it say here for side by side? Oh, I think side by side, you you pass it back and forth to the other person. So so let's say you don't have an iOS device with side by side. Like I would take a shot, then I'd hand it to you, and it would switch screens, and you would take a shot. But the coolest is the concept of Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, because you could be on the other side of the room, like the old days with with Battleship. You could be you'd each have your separate side of the board. You wouldn't see the other side, but here you could be on the other side of the table. It's very cool, So I've tested the Wi-Fi version, and I haven't tested the Bluetooth, but it's very cool. The sounds are cool. It's only 99 cents. Now in settings, you can change. You can shut the sound off. You can put the sound back on. You can have hidden targets. You can have cut scenes. I guess that's after you hit something, it shows like the missile hitting your boat. That's kind of cool. So cutscenes is a very cool thing. Split screens. I guess that flips it so that you're, by default, the computer, if you're playing, the computer's on the left and you're on the right, and I guess that can flip it. And also there's something called edit names. And if you want to edit your names, right now the names are Lex, me, and Player 2. So overall, I'd say if you're into board games, my kids like it. I've played with my kids, and it's very cool that you can play on multiple, like 2 iOS devices at the same time. Okay, so let me show you what it looks like when you play. Okay, so you get this graphic, and so first, you're on the left, your ships are on the left, and you can reposition them just like in the game. Now, if you want to make it vertical, you just tap it, and it goes vertical, and you're sort of placing them. You're trying to hide them. You can, like again, if you tap it, it goes vertical. So then you deploy them. So this is the classic game, and then you click OK, and then you're playing against the computer. So here I'm playing against the computer. So on the right screen is your target. So I'm trying to hit the computer screens. And if you look at the bottom right here, there are 5 ships on either side. Big ships, subs, destroyers, other kind of ships. So you have to sink all the enemy fleet, the 5 ships, before they get onto you, and until they hit you. So the way you play is you pick a square, and you can either launch the thing by just double tapping on it, or clicking the big red button on the left. So then you get this graphic that shows you where you hit, and if you miss, you get a little white ball, which means a white pin. Now here, the computer hit my aircraft carrier, and I have the graphic on, like the little visual cutaways. So I can just sort of randomly hit, and I can use the launcher. I can place my, where I'm going to shoot, and press the launcher. And there it goes. There goes a rocket, and I missed. When you hit, you see a little more smoke, and you see something a little underneath the water, and that's the giveaway. Now the computer is sort of onto my aircraft carrier. But let me show you quickly another mode. Okay, so let me select salvo mode, and here we go. And in salvo mode, again, I'm gonna arrange my ships and click OK. And in salvo mode, you can just shoot more rockets at the same time. So here I'm going to position it, and you see it's gonna hold on. I got to select. Oh, I got to select 5 targets. So I'm selecting 5 targets and then firing, and then boom, you get 5 missiles going up, and I think I hit something. See, it hit one of the carriers. Now I have a red pin, and so now the computer's going to shoot, and it's going to, well, it hit 2 of my boats. So the game really speeds up with this salvo mode. It's very cool. So let me show you the third mode. Okay, so the third mode is the super weapons mode, and I already have a game in progress, so let's see how that's going. So in the super weapons mode, you have different weapons. Right now, though, the only weapon I can use is just the regular rocket. But let's start a new game. So let's go back to super weapons. new game, and when you start off the new game, you can pick what weapons you want to use. Now, I think you have to earn your way up to more powerful weapons. So at the beginning, let's say you've got the shield weapon, which creates a force field technology field that deflects the first hit on each ship. You've got the chain gun mode, which you got a helicopter gun platform that cuts through 5 C squares. You've got decoys, electronic decoys, that give a false ship indication to enemy when hit, and it can be revealed by sinking the false ship or hitting the real ship. And you've got things like airstrike, a line of 3 spaced explosive hits dropped from a bomber. And I haven't totally figured out how they kick in. It seems like you have to hit a few ships before some of these kick in. You've got frag bombs here. Let's drag frag bombs over here. And let's get rid of the decoy and use the airplane too. Okay, so let's start the battle. Now, if you pick shields, you've got shields over your boats. So that's pretty cool. I'm just gonna leave them, move them around a little bit. And there you go. And so what happens with the shield is, if the bomb hits a boat with the shield, the first time it hits, it doesn't, damage the boat. But they know that there's a boat there, so they'll come after you next time. So let's just see how this sort of works out. At the beginning, even though I have multiple weapons, I can still only use just the single shooting gun. But eventually, you get freed up. You free up your other weapons. So overall, this is a cool mode. So overall, it's thumbs up from me on this very cool game. Now I want to talk about a new adventure in the iPad, and I've been thinking about using a stylus with the iPad, and recently I picked up for about $14-15 the stylus from Griffin. It's the Griffin stylus, and if you're looking at the video version of this podcast, I'm holding it, and it basically looks like a pen. It's got a clip, and it's got a very hard nub at the end. And Griffin usually makes good products, and basically, I tested it out, and it does make writing on the iPad much better than using your finger, because it's more natural to use a pen. So if you're looking at the video version of this, I'm using it's the Wacom's free app for writing, and I tried it out. Okay, so this Griffin stylus also works with other apps that are useful for writing. One is WritePad. I've talked about WritePad before. WritePad recognizes your handwriting recognition, and with a stylus, WritePad appears to be easier. So there's 2 modes in WritePad. You can just write directly on the screen. So I will write something in test, and look, test becomes the word test. Test, let's see, another word, test, writing, test writing. So that's that mode. But the other mode that I like with WritePad is you can write in this bottom yellow area, and it's a much easier place to write, and then the typing is up above, not where you wrote. So I can write here, test writing is fun on the iPad. Okay, so it's not perfect. But you get the hang of it. So that's one app that's really cool with this stylus. But there's other apps that are good too. Let me show you another one. So another app that would be very handy with the stylus on the iPad is Note-Taker HD. And I've talked about Note-Taker HD before. The beauty of Note-Taker HD is you can take little teeny notes in a very small area. Now watch this. I'm going to put like a little box on the line here. And then I'm going to go, let's see, to writing mode, and watch this. I'm going to write, it's just going to recognize, it's not going to recognize anything. It's just going to be sort of your handwriting there. Now with Note-Taker HD allows you to write and cram into really small places, because what you can do is you got like a piece of paper on the screen, and then you can create a very small area you want to write into, but you don't have to write in that area. Instead, Note Taker HD gives you an area, like a box, that you can write in, and what you write in goes into that small area, the note area that you want to take the note in. So you could have like a sheet of paper filled with really small writing. So it's not handwriting recognition. It allows you to handwrite on the iPad screen and jam your notes into any size area that you want. So here's I select the blue area, the blue dotted line area, and I'm going to write, this is a form of note taking. And then boom, it's right there in that area. And if I want to move to the right, I move to the right, and I can position that like sort of blue area, and I can write testing how to write. Now what's cool about Note Taker is that it just has tremendous detail and things that you can do with it, like formatting. But the really cool thing is you could make your notes all kinds of things. It has, like, for example, scaling arrows that you can bring in. You've got I can undo that. You've got axes. You've got musical staff lines. You've got circle ellipses, and you've got basic shapes. So you've got all sorts of stuff. So you can take all sorts of notes, make all sorts of interesting things, and with the stylus, it just makes it much easier to do stuff. So for example, let's see, now I want to, well, I haven't figured. Anyways, the point is, it's a very handy app, and with the stylus, I think you can do much more. So I'm not saying this is the best stylus, but for 14 bucks, it's pretty good. Okay, so the next app may make you very happy, particularly if you're a Star Trek fan, because CBS Interactive, which I guess owns the rights to the Star Trek label, or whatever, the Star Trek copyright, has an app out that's $4.99 that's really made for for Trekkies, for Star Trek fans. So basically what it is, and let me just read to you what it says. It basically immerses fans in a rich interactive database of Star Trek information and images with an authentic reproduction of the LCARS style interface introduced in the Star Trek, the Next Generation series. So the Star Trek Pad, PADD, provides access to the official Star Trek database from StarTrek.com of aliens, ships, places, technologies, and an episode guide. And it also includes a reproduction of the LCARS, the LCARS, the computer interface commonly used in Starfleet and in the United Federation of Planets during the 24th century. And so you can browse and search through the official databases. You can immerse yourself in the graphics. You hear computer sound effects and voices. And you can read the latest news from the Star Trek Facebook page and feed. So this is really, it's like a fan interactive app. And, well, I'll tell you, the reviews are kind of mixed. One person gives it 1 star and says it's a shame, really. CBS had an opportunity to put out something cool and useful, but they find it kind of gimmicky. But other people gave it like a 5, that it's a fun app, but it needs more pictures. Actually, no, they gave it 4 stars. So, you know what? I've been a Star Trek fan for some time, so I decided, what the hell, I'll spring for the $5. By the way, it's a massive download. It's 190 megabyte file. So this is a pretty massive file. It came out on July 11th. But I downloaded it, so let me give you a quick peek at it if you're looking at the video podcast, and I'll show you what it looks like and hopefully what it sounds like too. Okay, so this is what the icon looks like. It has sort of Star Trek, the Star Command symbol. And let's see, you launch it, and let's see what it looks like. I don't know if you can hear on it. There's a sort of a computer talking. It says initializing the official Starfleet pad. And it looks kind of cool, the graphics, kind of retro like in the 60s. It's a pretty busy screen, but it's a screen, I guess, sort of like what what the interfaces were like back in the 60s when they had science fiction on the Star Trek. So let's see, it's got this sort of retro 60s look. So there's an area called characters, an area called episodes, an area called places, and it sort of beeps. It beeps a lot like the tricorder or whatever that it was on Star Trek. And there's a cast area and a food area, science, med, tech, aliens. So it's got a lot of stuff. So let's pick characters. Let's see what happens. It switches, and you've got different characters databases. It's in alphabetical order. There's a little alphabet on the right, and you can sort of pick a letter. Let's pick Spock. Let's go to S. Let's see if Spock is there. We're scrolling. There's a lot of S. I was a big fan of the original Star Trek, and not so much of the later years. So it looks like it has all the Star Trek series here. Let's see, Spock. It's kind of hard to find Spock because there's so many S's. So it's a pretty comprehensive database. Just flipping through this, you're getting a lot of characters. It's almost like an encyclopedia. So I have a couple of young kids, and they haven't really, gotten into Star Trek. But you know what? Star Trek is now, I think, streaming on Netflix. We'll take a look at that, but I do believe it's there. Let's see, Spock. Here he is, Spock. There's the original Spock. So let's click on the original Spock and see what it says. And here it has stats on him. Starfleet Historical Database, Spock, full biography mode, rank, captain, retired. It's got his serial number. I didn't know he had one. Full name, Spock. Last whereabouts, Romulus, Starfleet Academy. So it sort of views him as an actual, member of the fleet. Here's a nice section called Places. So for Places, it just has, I guess, all these, zillions and zillions of places that they've been to. Let's pick something random here. Vaca 6. Vaca 6. For some of these places, images are not available. Okay, let's pick V. Darwin. It says, a Class M Federation planet with a population of 3,724,000 in 2268, the USS Enterprise was sent to divert what was thought to be an asteroid on a collision course with the planet. The asteroid actually turned out to be, and you can actually click and get more. The asteroid actually turned out to be a multi-generational spaceship Yonada, built 10,000 years ago by the Fabrini to save their race before their sun went nova. So it's a little gimmicky, but you know what? If you're really into Star Trek, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool, and I'm actually thinking, my kids are into science fiction. My son's into Power Rangers, and he also likes Star Wars, and I haven't really exposed him to Star Trek, but this is kind of cool. You can also, I guess, go to the Facebook. I guess the Facebook page feed goes into this, so if you want to see what the official Star Trek Facebook page feed says, this is kind of cool. Let's see for technology, what does it say? I'm going to put the volume up so you can hear the tweaking. Do you hear that tweaking? This is what it sounds like. Do you hear that tweaking? It's like the tricorder tweaking. But it has a lot of facts regarding all this crazy technology that was on Star Trek. Let's see, access terminal. Alteon Brain Teaser. So look, it's $5. It's kind of gimmicky, but I don't know. It does sort of feel like you're in Star Trek and kind of like one of those devices that they had in Star Trek. So if you are a big Trekkie fan, this seems to be somewhat fun. So check it out. Okay, so if you want to have the iPad in the enterprise, and enterprise being big business and government agencies, large corporations, Apple has done something recently that might make it easy for you to bring it into the enterprise if you have that kind of influence, which is Apple recently sent an email to developers saying that they should prepare because Apple's going to have a business-to-business volume purchasing program. And so Apple's going to soon debut, and I'm looking at NewsFactor.com on July 15th. Apple's going to soon debut a volume purchase program for the App Store, allowing businesses to buy iPhone and iPad apps in bulk. And this is huge, because right now, imagine if you wanted to deploy hundreds of these iPads in the enterprise and government agencies. Are you really going to have, each user download an app one by one? Wouldn't it be great if you could just, as the enterprise person, just arrange to have, a volume license and then download a whole bunch? And so it says here, IT departments will be able to control which workers become activated by providing app redemption codes in an email or from an internally hosted website. And it also says here that Apple noted that 19 third-party mobile device management platforms are currently available to assist IT administrators with redemption code management. So this is going to really, I think, help the iPad get into where we work. I mean, where I work, I would love to see iPads deployed. I think they'd be very useful. And, so maybe this will come in the fall with iOS 5. It can only help those of us who would like to see the iPad used in business and in the enterprise. Okay, so there's been a lot of rumors that, there might be an iPad 3 coming out as soon as this fall. Personally, I don't think it's going to happen because, the iPad 2 is selling like gangbusters, and there's not a lot of competition. But the rumors continue. But Cult of Mac this week on July 14th had an article. Basically, there's been a supposed leak of an internal component. And basically, they showed a docked connector. And the title of the article, is this the dock connector for the Retina display iPad 3? And basically, a Chinese Apple site called Apple Pro, which according to Cult of Mac has a record of leaking such parts, says that and they show like this dock connector. To me, it doesn't mean much. It just looks like an internal component. But it says that the item is significantly different from the iPad 2 and therefore for a brand new design. And what Cult of Mac says is that if the part is legitimate, it would seem to suggest that Apple is indeed close to manufacturing with an iPad aimed at pro users. And, the idea would be that the iPad 3 would have a much higher Retina display, like, much higher resolution than the current iPad 2. Now, there could be a scenario where Apple does come out with an iPad 3 in the fall, because let's say that, if you want to make a much higher resolution screen for the iPad, it could theoretically cost a lot of money. And Apple wants to keep the iPad 2, price point of entry point of $500. So what if it had the ability to put in the iPad a much higher resolution screen, but maybe it adds a lot to price? So maybe like with the MacBook Pros, where you can pay extra for a higher resolution MacBook Pro, maybe Apple is going to release an iPad 3, which has a much higher resolution than the iPad 2 and costs a lot more. I could see Apple doing that. Apple could basically say, look, we currently have iPads that sell from between $500 and $820. But you know what? We were able to secure some really expensive high-resolution screens that, let's say, double the resolution of the iPad. But we're going to sell them at like $1,400 or $1,300. So maybe Apple's going to do that. But I don't see Apple just completely replacing the iPad 2 line with iPad 3s a mere, 6 months after the iPad 2 came out. So it's an interesting article from Cult of Mac. Actually, to give credit, Cult of Mac got this via Apple Insider. So we'll have to see. I think the fall is going to be a very busy time for iOS fans. Okay, so Cult of Mac had another very interesting article this week about a jailbreak app that I've never heard of. You can get it on Cydia if you jailbreak your iPad, and basically it's called iUsers. And iUsers allows you to create multiple user accounts in a single iPad. So you could log in and see your stuff, and then log out and give it to somebody else, and they could log in and they wouldn't see your stuff. So in the article, there's a video showing how it's used, and it's kind of cool. It's like somebody logs in and into their account, and then they can log out, and somebody else can log in. So, I'm not sure how much it costs, but it's kind of cool. It's designed by a guy named Pedro Franceschi, and it's called iUsers, iUsers. And you can switch between apps using... I guess he previously designed a jailbreak app that allowed you to switch between apps using your volume controls. But this is much more, interesting. And I do think eventually Apple will build in multiple user accounts to the iPad, similar to how you can do it on a Macintosh, because people are sharing the iPad. I mean, some families have one iPad. So I don't know if you're adventurous and you're into the jailbreaking stuff and into such hacking, you might want to check it out. It's called iUsers, and it's a Cydia store app. Now, you probably know that one of the great things about the iPad, particularly the iPad 2, is its great processor, the A5 in the iPad 2 and the A4 in the first iPad. And these are basically great, powerful processors that give off very little heat, which is essential when you make such a thin device. And, for these processors have been supplied by Samsung. And now Apple's in a big lawsuit with Samsung because Apple's claiming that Samsung is ripping off with its Galaxy devices, the Galaxy smartphones and the Galaxy tablet, that Samsung is copying and violating trademark and patent laws and all sorts of stuff. And it's a very nasty suit. But meanwhile, Apple is paying billions and billions of dollars to Samsung for these chips. Well, there's a story out. I saw it on 9 to 5 Mac, and it's via Reuters, that Apple is using Taiwan-based manufacturer TSMC to test the production of the A6 processor, which is the future processor for iPhones and iPads. So according to this article, it could be that Apple is going to shift away from Samsung and go with other manufacturers like TSMC. And in this article, it says basically that the A6 processor will probably debut in the third generation iPad, probably in 2012. So can you imagine what these iPads are going to be like as these processors get faster and faster and more powerful? I mean, aren't they going to really challenge the computer? Don't you think at some point we're going to have a version of Apple's high-end movie editing program, Final Cut Pro, on the iPad, or Logic? It's a professional audio music recording software. I think we will, because I think next year it's going to be even more powerful, and the year after that even more. So looking forward to that. Now, in terms of what the future may hold for the iPad, there is some intelligence pointing to the fact that the Apple TV may eventually have its Bluetooth capability activated. Right now, the little Apple TV has some sort of Bluetooth device in there, but it's not activated. And Bluetooth is a form of wireless communication. A lot of keyboards, for example, communicate with a computer like a Macintosh by the Bluetooth method. And the iPad has Bluetooth in it, and a lot of devices can sort of connect with each other. iPad devices can connect with iPhone devices by Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Now, the beauty of Bluetooth is you don't need like a router to go through. You can go directly Bluetooth to Bluetooth. The downside is there's not a lot of distance. But 9to5Mac reports, I guess it's reporting in other news by jailbreakers, that people going through the iOS 5 beta have discovered a way to show that the Apple TV second generation has Bluetooth keyboard support via a jailbreak. And someone was able to get that to work. But why that excites me is I would like to see the Apple TV work by Bluetooth with other devices, because right now iOS 5 is going to support Wi-Fi wireless mirroring from the iPad to the Apple TV, and that's huge if you want to display stuff on a big TV. But wouldn't it be great if you also had Bluetooth capability, because then you wouldn't have to bring a router with you? So I'm hoping that Apple just generally enables the Apple TV to have Bluetooth pairing with the iPad, because then you could, like, send over Bluetooth content like, keynote presentations or other presentations that you have on your iPad. So let's hope that happens. I mean, this is a good development. Okay, so other news in the future is that Apple released the third beta for iOS 5. That's going to be the next generation operating system for the iPad and the iPhone. That's going to come out in September, most likely. And there's something new in there for the iPad, which, according to 9to5Mac, Apple has a new gesture-based control panel that replaces hardware buttons for assistive touch capabilities. And there's a little video of this. And basically the feature, you basically have this pop-up window come out, so you can do things like lock the screen, turn it left or right, all the stuff that you use to control the iPad. Instead of hardware, I guess you can enable it to use it just a sort of like a little virtual screen that's on top of the iPad. So this is great because eventually, people, I guess, are going to be able to get rid of the home pad, or Apple's going to get rid of the home button on the iPad. So, it's going to be a cool feature to be able to just quickly bring up this sort of screen that allows you to have all sorts of gestures to control the device, replacing a lot of what the hardware buttons could do. So I haven't played around with this new feature, but I think it's going to be very cool. Okay, so if you're really into your iPad and you're looking for a very unusual case, you might want to check out something I saw on a website called chipchick.com. That's chipchick.com. And what it is, it's a Panda case. And basically I guess it goes for $54.95. And it's a case that looks like a panda, like a very cute panda. And I guess they also make an iPhone available, and it's very cute. It's very cuddly. So maybe this is for a kid. If you've got a lot of money and you want to buy a kid a very nice case. The article points out that it would even put Hello Kitty's Apple case selection to shame. So it's sort of like a little furry Panda, and I guess the company that makes it is Hobie Groovy Collection. Makes other similar cases. If you go to their website, which is on Etsy, Hobie Groovy sells on the Etsy site. There's all sorts of cases for the iPad. There's the Goomba iPad 2 case, which looks like some, funny creature with eyes. There's the Super Mushroom iPad case. So there's a whole little cottage industry. Maybe it's all on Etsy of iPad cases, but they're not cheap. They're about anywhere from $30 to $50. The Panda one is definitely cute. So kudos to that website for finding it. There's also a Yoshi iPad case by Hobie Groovy. So these are definitely some of the more unusual iPad cases that I've seen. So you might want to check it out. Go to Etsy, that's ETSY.com, and just search for Hobie Groovy, HOOBY and that gets you, I guess, sort of handmade iPad cases. Actually, just searching iPad with an Etsy, I think Hobie Groovy is the only one making iPad cases, because when I searched, search, let me go back to the beginning of Etsy and just put iPad in, and let's see what happens. Well, actually, you get a lot more cases. It's not just Hobie Groovy. There's somebody named iPad Lady who's making a, kind of interesting plaid-like case. It's actually kind of pretty. It's only, let's see, how much is this? $26. And this is kind of stylish. Let's see, there's another case that's water resistant, made, let's see who this is. It's a iPad 2 water resistant smart cover sleeve case zipper pad with a pretty flower design on it, and that's only $25. And so, looks like, I've never thought about looking at Etsy for iPad covers, but it looks like they have some interesting stuff, and it's in the price range of other iPad covers, so you might want to check it out. Okay, so my final thing I want to talk about tonight is something I don't think any of us should do, which is make your own iPad. And I found this on a website called hackaday.com. That's HACKADAY.com. And it says, don't buy an iPad. This came out on July 17th. Make one. And there are some screenshots here. And the story basically is that when Lou decided he wanted one of the new iPads, rather than fork out the cash, he decided to build his own tablet Mac. His creation functions just as you would expect any tablet PC, with some extra features such as running on Windows XP for any of you Microsoft lovers. So Lou's tablet apparently only cost him $300, about half the price of the real thing. And there's 2 videos showing how he constructed it. The final product is a bit thicker than the real thing, but looks great in the laptop style case. And Lou has whipped up, and I don't know if we look at the video, I mean, this is ridiculous. He's got all sorts of like little parts, and he literally is making an iPad, some sort of tablet-like device by himself. But I can't. Why would you go to all this trouble? Okay, so I mean, according to the article, it cost him $300, and he's obviously putting tremendous amount of labor into this. This looks like some sort of scientist shop with all sorts of little props and stuff. And look, this is a 3-part video, and the first part's 7 minutes, so it's got to take them a long time to put this together, and they're sort of speeding up. But Really, don't do this. It's not worth it. You can get last year's iPad for, I don't know, $200 or $250 on eBay or from other resellers. And you can get the brand new iPad 2, the entry-level one, for $499. So, I don't know why people would go to this extent to make their own iPad. And I guess this is in China where the parts are cheap. But you don't want to try this, folks. You don't want to try it. Hey, thanks for listening to episode 63 of the iPad podcast. This is Lex at Max Future, and I'm also on Google Plus and Twitter as Max Future. Today is July 17th. Thanks for listening, and remember, this is a commercial-free, chit-chat-free podcast. Any positive feedback in the iTunes store would be greatly appreciated. If you wish to contact me, you can email me at maxfuture@gmail.com. I still have some Google Plus invitations if you want to join. I think it's a great social networking service, so don't hesitate to email me. I've sent some invites to some people who've contacted me, and let's look forward to next week and have a great iPad week. And again, this is Lex from Max Future signing off.